Can you hear me? Thanks for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or maybe I should say Dzień dobry. To all of you, thanks Julius for the invitation on having me with you on this prestigious PIFA event. It's a privilege to be here with you on this historical city of Toruń. I have very good memories on Poland, above all when PIFA was hosting the Working Group C event in summer 2016 in Gdansk. At that time we discussed the SOLAS requirement of the VGM, or verified gross mass, which was high on the agenda in those days. Now it's all nicely implemented, time flies. PIFA represents a very sizable and active association of our industry, and PIFA is committed to protect the interests of our industry. But PIFA's impressive professional resources have also tradition to support FIATA. PIFA's support to FIATA is very important. FIATA depends on the involvement and support of its national member. We need you. In this context, I would like to mention, of course, Marek, but also Julius, who's been a main pillar of the Working Group C. And last but not least, what would the ABLM be without the exceptional support of Beata? FIATA today. Before I start, please allow me to give you a very brief overview of FIATA. FIATA stands for International Federation of Freight Forwarders Association, and it's the largest federation and voice of global logistics. FIATA has 114 association members and 6,000 individual members. FIATA is the voice. Do I need this? Can you hear me like this? Yes. You need it for the translation, sorry. Sorry for the translation, yeah. So 40,000 freight forwarding companies in more than 150 countries worldwide. So clearly FIATA is the global voice of freight forwarding, of the freight forwarding industry, with PIFA being our association member in Poland. I have to go back. It's simple. Unless we as an industry defend our interest will be neglected and crushed by stronger, more powerful and dominating stakeholders. And as we all know, in the maritime world, we have stakeholders, we have a stakeholder that is not only dominating, we have a stakeholder who's trying to bully us, but I come to that later. There's a lot of work that requires finance as well as professional support. And with a headquarter in Geneva, FIATA has made leaps forward of being represented and respected on a global scale. FIATA today. Here's a short overview of FIATA's membership benefit. I would like to give some short examples of our work. Of course, you all know the ICS2 filing some time ago, about a year ago, and it was not so easy to convince the authorities to protect our industry to file on our own data. I mean, you don't want your data being filed by the shipping lines. But I would also like to mention the source. It's a good source of best practices, toolkits, industry guidelines and training. We've done a lot of work on demurrage and detention. I tell you, I can talk for hours on demurrage and detention. Only half a year ago, we came up with a best practice guide on maritime contracting, an excellent document for all in the maritime industry, but above all for forwarders issuing their bill of lading, acting as carriers. And here again, Beata has been a very active supporter and member of the working group. So Beata, really, what would we do without you? I would like to leave it here, but we'll get back to one of the main items, which is the FIATA e-bill of lading. Yeah. So our industry used to have the title of being the architect of transport. The term architect of transport beautifully captured the role freight forwarders played in the 20th century. Designing routes, choosing carriers, combining modes, and orchestrating complex movements of goods across borders, much like an architect draws up the blueprint for a building. Today, we have become the orchestrators of global connectivity, integrating technology, data, above all data, and sustainability into everything we move. In a world of disruptions, we don't just arrange transport. We enable global trade to move forward. In fact, during the pandemic, it was our industry that came to the rescue of global supply chains. Where other stakeholders failed, we provided solutions with the support of our global networks, but above all, with well-trained and professional human resources. No algorithm would have been able to solve the problem. When I talk about global supply chains, I have to see whether I'm right. When I talk about global supply chains, we talk about multimodal transport from end to end, ideally from door to door. Do you know that the Fiata Multimodal Transport BL was established back in 1986, the first MTO bill of lading of its kind? In other words, it is our industry that has initiated and developed multimodal transport from door to door, covered by one document as early as 40 years ago. With what other stakeholders, shipping lines, sell today as innovation has been our butter and bread business for 40 years. If you issue a bill of lading and handle end-to-end transport, you obviously need a network, a global network. You need a delivery agent at destination. And this is one of the main assets of our industry. We have well-established and matured global networks of offices that provide the global connectivity in order to enable global trade keep moving. In this context, we are extremely agile. We don't need to support own assets, such as our vessels or aircrafts. We are free to choose the best option on behalf and in the pure interest of our customers. We provide solutions tailor-made to the individual requirement of our customers. But it's not only about transport. We're adding value to our services by acting as supply chain consultant. We are end-to-end supply chain advisors, blending logistics execution with strategic consulting, data insight, and sustainable leadership. We are helping global shippers to balance cost, service, and resilience in an increasingly complex maritime environment. Let me share a recent example of my company. A customer has been manufacturing for years in China, exporting to Europe. They were looking to relocate their production to Southeast Asia. We prepared a complete file comparing logistics costs, transit, lead times, duties, duty withdrawal options, as well as import tax-related issues, comparing and simulating sites in Vietnam and Indonesia. The customer decided for Vietnam, and we meanwhile shipped the whole production site from China to Vietnam and started shipping the products from Vietnam to Europe. We basically presented full supply chain data and information to our customer on a golden plate through our offices and global connectivity. On our side, we simply exchanged China with Vietnam, adjusting processes to fit the new environment. But I think we can't talk about maritime if we don't talk about congestion. Still today, some 3 years after the pandemic, the maritime supply chains remain unreliable, and just in time is a term of the past. Just in case, planning has taken over. But can these congestions purely be blamed on external disruptions, on weather conditions that we always had? I have to check a little bit because I think I mixed up the... this one I need, sorry. I'm German. Huh? I like fairy tales. Once upon a time, there was a maritime supply chain that offered weekly sailings, vessel closings 2 days prior to vessel departure. And if you were late, you picked up the phone and called the terminal to make last-minute arrangements. We had FOB lead times of 4 days. 4 days from container loading to vessel departure. We had reasonable free time, demurrage, and detention. We had planning certainty. Stakeholders worked together. We communicated respectfully with each other. Free demurrage and detention times were fair and reasonable, allowing for planning and planning certainty. Today, we have various closings, delivery, documentation, VGM, AMS, but most important is that the export closing is often 4 days more prior to vessel departure. If you have a weekend in between, you easily talk about 1 whole week and more. You pick up an empty container only to learn that the vessel is coming in late by 3 days or even more. As a result, you have to drop everything, reschedule your transport arrangement, try to explain this to a frustrating customer whose warehouses and loading bays become congested too. Products arrive late at overseas customers, and nobody wants to pay extra charges. The window to match all closing dates within the free time period is extremely tight. Often there's only 1 day. And to catch the free time demurrage and detention window has become for everyone a rat race to the terminals, leading now to landside bottlenecks and congestion. Just to recap, closing periods have more than doubled. That means that the dwelling time of export containers in the terminal also increased. But at the same time, shipping lines reduce the free period for demurrage and detention to increase fluidity. Isn't that a paradox? I repeat, shipping lines decrease free time periods for demurrage and detention in order to reduce the dwelling time of containers in the port, to increase fluidity. But they are the ones increasing dwelling times due to longer closing periods. The question occurs as to why the closing periods have increased. So what happened to the maritime supply chain of today that used to have, remember, once upon a time, fast transit, but above all had sailing schedule reliability that made just-in-time deliveries possible? Prior to the closing of the Suez, I would have estimated a door-to-door transit from Belgium to Singapore, countries I've been living, at about 35 days. But 30 years ago, that was 25 days. Because you had 18 days transit. Vessels were going faster, or if they were late, they were picking up by putting up speed. Now cost is the main concern of shipping lines. So that means the transit time has increased by 40%. Today, of course, we have to navigate around South Africa. So, it is even 50 days, 60 days, nobody knows, and possibly it's a good idea to pray to whatever God we have to have the container arrive at one stage. So nobody knows the transit today. There's inconsistency, there's no reliability. So what is the reason for that? Of course, the main reason is the vessel size. Good. So ultra-large container vessels now dominate key trade lanes, delivering massive volumes with higher peaks. Today's vessels have 24,000 TEU. The sheer volume handled by these mega vessels overwhelm inland infrastructure and create bottlenecks that ripple across the supply chain. Truck queues, traffic jams, warehouse congestion, and rescheduling of pre-carriage are becoming the norm rather than the exception. As a result, even minor disruptions, such as bad weather, can trigger cascading delays across the entire system. The vessel size also has an impact on unreliable vessel schedules, with unpredictable port call delays, forcing us to continuously cancel and reschedule our transport arrangements to meet ever-changing vessel arriving times. The situation is increasing our cost and is reducing our productivity. And all on the back of our human resources, who have a difficult time to explain the situation to our customer. We have a situation of cut-off dates changed even after a booking was confirmed, simply due to new vessel arriving times. Export containers may have been positioned and loaded, but cannot be delivered to port terminals due to new cut-off times. This is exposing us to significant additional risk and cost, including, of course, detention fees. But above all, what do we do with the container? The whole system is at edge, with a high exposure to even small disruptions, leading to delay and congestion. Today we are dealing with about 10 global container shipping lines, and possibly Zimline is being sold, making it one less. These container shipping lines are organized in 3 alliances plus MSC, so in actual fact we have 4 services to choose from. We are really dealing with a paradox where increasing digitalization and automation should lead to greater efficiency, but the opposite seems to be true for container shipping. Today, we work with algorithms, artificial intelligence, a lot of things are automated, and people benefit from related developments. The world seems to be much more connected and turns faster by the day, except for container shipping. There's no just in time. We have to plan just in case. We have congestion problems even without any major issue in Europe. Like I said, a little bad weather or strike in one of the major terminals creates havoc to the system. What will happen if the war in the Middle East is over and the Suez opens again? I expect the mother of all congestions. A short comment on how this is affecting our industry. I mentioned it already. Once again, it is our industry who is dealing with the mentioned problems on the front row. It is our teams, our human resources, who go home frustrated and demotivated because again and again we have to cancel and reschedule transport arrangements, and the customer is not happy. But there's no use looking back. We should look forward. Let's say something about the Middle East. I think that is important. I mentioned how our industry came to the rescue of global supply chains during the pandemic. We are seeing the same principle tested again. Conflict in the Middle East is disrupting shipping lanes, airspace, fuel cost, and capacity planning. Once again, freight forwarders are doing the practical work of keeping goods moving, finding capacity, rerouting shipments, advising customers, protecting the flow of pharmaceuticals, components, and perishables. In moments like this, logistics is not just a commercial service. Let's have a look at the problems that occurred during the Middle East crisis. First, of course, there are containers that were caught in transit. Force majeure has been declared or BL clauses activated by shipping lines in order to end journeys, with the consequence that containers have been offloaded, dumped, in ports of the choice of the shipping lines. Offloaded at some ports and left at the care of the cargo interest. This solved the problem of the shipping lines. They got rid of the containers. They have dealt with the situation, with their problem. But for global shippers, this is just the beginning of a potential nightmare. Global shippers have to deal with containers dumped in ports and terminals that they don't want their containers to be. In terminals and locations where the documentation the documentation related to the transport does not match with the requirements and need to be adapted prior to moving the containers. In addition to that, shippers may not have any knowledge on contact in the mentioned ports. So again, it's left to our industry, to globally well-connected freight forwarders, to pick up the pieces, and it is us who look after the interests of the global shippers and take charge of the containers and deal with them to satisfy the need of our customers in a crisis. It is our industry that has the global networks, the experience, and the infrastructure and human resources to deal with the crisis. Once again, our industry is able to provide solutions where others fail. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, but the economies are huge. The economies of the Gulf are huge and need supplies. They rely a lot on imports. Container ships are not able to navigate the straits. We need other solutions. These solutions require a combination of different modes of transport. These are all multimodal moves. Our industry has come up offering multimodal solutions, usually using ports of Oman or the Red Sea. And of course, solutions will also need to take into consideration liability aspects and customs and transit documentation. You don't just move containers around. Some members offer these door-to-door solutions covering the whole liability aspects in one document. That is important. Transport is one thing, but liability is another. What is the liability of trucking cargo or container through the Saudi desert? We highly appreciate the proactive move of the GCC governments who made it a lot easier to move cargo, to provide fluidity. And as mentioned above, this is an extreme situation that requires fast and practical solutions. We need fluidity. We have no problem to jump in and rescue the situation in the interest of the cargo interest. As mentioned already, we have the solutions to deal with the cargo, to cover the transport liability as well as the customs documentation. I mixed up these slides, so this is the current one. So the situation requires all stakeholders to work together in the best interest of the cargo interest. In this context, it's once again sad to notice that our industry has problems in offering solution in merchant haulage. There are reports that shipping lines charge high additional charges for containers in merchant haulage, assumably in order to support their own solutions, to support their own solution in carrier haulage. It is very simple. Marketplaces become less efficient when entities have the power to levy unreasonable charges on their competition, on us. No matter whether containers move in merchant haulage or in carrier haulage, there should be equal and fair treatment of customers. To offer competitive solutions, we need reasonable demurrage and detention terms that support the current crisis. Vertical integration of shipping lines, of course. Shipping lines have developed an appetite to vertically integrate in the maritime supply chain. They fish in our pond. And with the windfall profit of recent years, their coffers are full. Do we have to worry? Do freight forwarders have to worry? Freight forwarders and NVOCCs have always been in competition with shipping lines. And in the past, shipping lines have failed badly. They have probably underestimated the function of the freight forwarder in the value chain. Freight forwarders focus heavily on customer service and customer satisfaction. Freight forwarders are not just the middlemen. FIATA welcomes competition, but it must take place on the same level playing field, which it is not. Shipping lines are not competing on the same playing level field. But global regulators have listened to FIATA advocacy recently, making reference to dominance and unfair practices of shipping lines. In the following, just to list a few, there's of course demurrage and detention practices, and as I said, I could talk for hours. But in this regard, the FMC in the United States has done excellent work. And they have identified that shipping lines are dominating the market and they're watching their fingers. So we should really look at what we do at FIATA, what the FMC is doing, and what is valid in the USA should be valid in other countries as well. So there's a lot of work done in the USA. Surcharges and its legitimation. I'm not saying that surcharges should disappear altogether, no, but we need transparency. Also, surcharges must be temporary in nature. If they are long-term, they must be part of the basic rate. They must be clearly justifiable and be subject to transparent calculation. The European block exemption regulation, Klicker did a wonderful job on the block exemption, so we got rid of it. Merchant haulage, I mentioned it in relation to the Middle East. We need fair competition when it comes to carrier haulage and merchant haulage. The tonnage tax. The tonnage tax is determined by the tonnage of the fleet and not based on corporate profit. So what at the end, it's all a bit complicated, but at the end of the day, shipping lines pay 5 to 7% on their profits. How much do you pay? And we compete with shipping lines, obviously. So there's a lot of room, and there is movement against the tonnage tax. Now, this is my last main item. We could now cry and so sad, yeah, these shipping lines. But I think that is not our gene, and I think we are a powerful industry, and we have a lot to say. So my proposal or my best practice towards the vertical integration of shipping line is to act as carrier. What I argue is that forwarders must act as carrier in order to protect their interest. Forwarders acting as agent are the middlemen. The forwarder facilitates the contract of carriage between shipper and the shipping line. As a consequence, the shipper is as much the customer of the forwarder acting as agent, as well it is a customer to the shipping line acting as carrier. Your customer, your shipper, becomes the shipper in the bill of lading of the shipping line. There's a contractual relationship. If the shipping line approaches and communicates directly with the shipper, which we all know they do, some more than others, but they do, so they're trying to attract the business directly for them without the involvement of the freight forwarder. One may argue it's not ethical, but at the final analysis, the shipping line is only approaching an existing contractual partner. So you deliver your customer on a golden plate. Not good. So the best course of action, as far as I'm concerned, against vertical integration is to act as carrier, to act as principal. By acting as carrier, the forwarder is concluding the contract of carriage directly with the shipper and is at the same time concluding a contract of carriage with the shipping line, master bill of lading, house bill of lading. In this scenario, the shipping line has no more direct contractual relationship with the shipper, and the shipping line becomes a subcontractor of the forwarder. Doesn't that sound good? Shipping line, you're a subcontractor. So the forwarder acting as carrier is sitting in the driver's seat and having contracted the sea freight from port to port. And this opens various opportunities to add extra value to the maritime supply chain from door to door. There are, however, important requirements for the forwarder to act as carrier. One needs special know-how, be careful you expose yourself. One needs a global network, you need a delivery agent. One needs additional liability cover because you take on additional liability. And above all, one needs a bill of lading. So I come to my conclusion. Okay. There's a big threat of big transport, shipping lines, big transport, but also terminals, aggressively integrating vertically into the maritime supply chain. to fish in our pond. It is happening, and they have the funds. They have a lot of money. So whilst Fiata will continue, and Klekat as well, will continue to try to ensure that the competition takes place on the same level playing field, each and every forwarder is responsible to control and drive its own destiny. It's up to us individually, to do what we have to do in this situation. Competition is fierce, and only the fittest will be successful. Acting as carrier and to become an NVOCC, become a forwarder acting as carrier, is a major step to remain in the driver's seat with your shipper, with your customer. Take control of the supply chain from door to door and unlock new opportunities and business models. So I think I come to the last slide, so I should be on time. We started later, that's not me. So our industry plays a critical role in the maritime supply chain because we are perfectly positioned to access high quality original data. And data becomes more and more important also in our industry. And maintain a comprehensive end-to-end view of the transport process. In this context, I advocate for a meaningful collaboration across the industry to develop smarter and more connected maritime supply chain solutions. All stakeholders, shipping lines, terminals, forwarders, all stakeholders need to sit together in order to improve the maritime supply chain in the interest of our customers, the shipper. Klekat only recently called for a return to the discussion on maritime logistics performance and governance. Fiata is a member of the FIT Alliance, Future of International Trade Alliance, amongst others focusing on standardization as well as strategic use of technology and data and aligning stakeholders. Fiata is also having monthly meetings being a member of the Cargo Integrity Group, discussing maritime safety and security issues, amongst others involving the shipping lines and shippers, as well as the underwriters. It is all about getting together as equal partners to find solutions. We need dialogues. We need dialogues and respect, and not domination and bullying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Roemer, for this extensive speech. Just to mention 100 years Fiata anniversary this October.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to be there as a PIFA, and maybe some of our individual members who are individual members of Fiata too. And what is worth mention, our organization, Poland, was one of the founder members of Fiata 100 years ago. Polish Associations of Forwarders in Lviv was the organization that signed the erection act of Fiata. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, please.
I think 100 years. It's amazing, and I think you should all come and party. And for Poland being one of the founding members is just amazing. I think there were only 12 members or 15, I can't remember. But we all don't know. So, but really, it's a great achievement. And our industry, when talking about the situation with shipping lines, vertical integration, I mean, if you remember when the borders, customs within Europe came down, I mean, our industry has been said 1,000 times. We are Finnish, we are the middleman, we don't add value, and it has never happened. We are there, the trade needs us. In this Cargo Integrity Group, we talk about security, safety and security. I mean, how if you have dangerous goods, so shipping line blame the shippers if for all the fires on board. Yeah, sorry. But if you have if you want to book cargo or a container, like you book your travel on booking.com, I mean, you ask for trouble, no? I mean, the knowledge of our shippers, in my opinion, has become so bad. Yeah, I mean, the industry needs us even more. But we have to fight for it, and we have to get recognition, and for that, we need associations such as Klekat and Fiata.
Yes, we are in the
So
times.
come and party.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Bardzo dziękujemy. Wspomniany kongres Fiata i obchody stulecia organizacji w październiku tego roku w Mediolanie, więc stosunkowo blisko, żeby się tam wybrać, do czego namawiam. Polska Izba Spedycji i Logistyki oczywiście będzie obecna.